He said it to me. I don't know why he didn't tell the Prime Minister. Who? About me. All right. All right. Don't be distracted by my laughter, because I'm coming now to the Financial Times. I'm coming to the Financial Times. And this is a document. This is a document. This is a cold soup. Well, let the public get some cold soup. You don't want it. If you don't want it, the public wants it. It's fresh for the public because the public never heard of this article in the Financial Times. Beg your pardon? All right. Written by Colby Smith, who is the U.S. editor, on May the 9th, 2019, the Financial Times. Please permit me to read it, sir.
You're making it a document.
I am so doing. It reads as follows. Please sit comfortably. The people at home are sitting comfortably. And they want to hear about White Oak. They want to hear, and they deserve to hear, that their taxpayers' money in the sum of $27 million US paid White Oak to do something that the Right Honorable Owen Seymour Arthur said that he could have done for free. $27 million US, 54 million Barbados, while we were defaulting on debt. We were paying a firm called White Oak $27 million US. Don't tell me Joe said it. He probably didn't shout. The people of Barbados need to hear this. I quote, Your Honor, a little-known UK advisory firm, you know, editors are very interesting people. They don't waste a word. Every word they use is used deliberately and for effect. I'm not going to deconstruct every phrase, but they begin the article by saying a little-known UK advisory firm. In Barbados, you was a man them in the body. Them in the body. Who them? Who them? Nobody you know them. That's what the American was saying. She can't say it like us. Who them? Who they is? Who they are? They in a body. A little-known UK advisory firm stands to make about $27 million from the restructuring of Barbados' $7 billion of debts, close to what Lazard earned 7 years ago when it advised Greece on defaulted debt, nearly 40 times bigger. That's how the article begins. Miss Colby Smith, an esteemed U.S. economics editor for the Financial Times and the economists in here, I believe the honorable member for Christchurch, he's central as an economist. I believe so. He never met me late one night and told me that. But he appears that way, based on his speeches in here. And he will want to say to this house, when his time comes, what that first paragraph meant. That a little-known advisory firm was paid $27 million, almost what Lazard earned when it advised Greece, whose defaulted debt was nearly 40 times bigger. They were saying that the fee was too high, and they were calling this government to account. As we call this government to account today, this is a reply. And I said in my opening, this government is not beyond being called to account. I go back to Mrs. Colby Smith. White Oak Advisory is a small firm with just 2 partners, Located opposite Claridge's Hotel in London's Mayfair, the size of the fee it will receive from its work on the default has outraged the Caribbean islands' creditors. Is Miss Colby Smith a liar? Did Miss Colby Smith call the creditors of Barbados, Barbados's creditors, and ask them why this wise Barbados government was paying a little-known firm in London the sum of 27 million US dollars? They use the word outraged. The creditors were outraged. Look, here we are. These people owe us money, and they're walking about squandering their money. That's what they were saying. And I quote, she now quotes, "The fee is absurd given the size of the debt." Honorable members, the Financial Times, this wasn't the bomb or the investigator. This was the world's leading financial publication. The fee is absurd given the size of the debt, unquote, said Sean Newman, an Atlanta-based portfolio manager at Invesco and a member of the External Committee of Creditors. And he is quoted again, "I've never seen anything like this in my 20 years in the business." Honorable member for St. Joseph is staring at me. He can't believe it. Yes, please do. Were you there? I heard this tale that I voted for it. I heard that tale. Bring the records. I heard that tale. All those in favor say yeah, and the ritual. Never said he ain't here yet. White Oak was founded a decade ago by Sebastian Espin. I don't like calling names. Please, I will leave the gentleman's name. But it was founded by S.E., a farmer who he is though. Some might call a former banker, and another person, a former U.S. Treasury Department official. It will earn about 27 million from the bankrupt country. That's how I felt so ashamed, Mr. Speaker. They're calling us a bankrupt country. And they're telling the world that this little foolish bankrupt country spending. But let me talk. No, you can get a turn. Let me tell my truth so you can tell your lies when your time comes. Financial Times. I brought 3 copies. Who wants one to see it close up? The Bajan government, no, I didn't get there. It will earn about $27 million from the bankrupt country, according to Financial Times calculations. That is almost double what Ukraine paid for advice on its $18 billion restructuring in 2015, according to people familiar with the deals. Mr. Speaker, what is your mood? The Prime Minister talked about a mood yesterday. What now must be the mood of this country? When the Financial Times is characterizing Barbados so disparagingly for squandering money, this is almost double what Ukraine paid for advice on its $18 billion restructuring in 2015, according to people familiar with the deals. I go on. The Bajan government hit back at the creditor criticism. So obviously, Mrs. Smith, good journalism. She goes to one, gets his view, and goes to the other. So she came to the Barbados government and asked, what is your opinion? These people are saying that you're squandering the taxpayers' money. And that Bajan government hit back at the creditor criticism. And I quote, "We believe it is excellent value for money given that through their efforts, we have saved $1 billion of interest and principal. We would hire White Oak again." You mean you can spend another $27 million? Have a heart. You can do it again, Mr. AG. Because it appears as if the Prime Minister now putting it on you. You would do it again? Now, that rhetoric I heard in here during the estimates. When I criticized the White Oak fee, one man said, but they saved this country $1 billion of interest and principal, and we will hire them again. What do those whose interests were supposed to be protected by the National Insurance Fund, what do those poor people feel about this? That 2 men were allowed, in fancy language, to restructure. But for the people who had money in the National Insurance Fund, it is no restructuring. They have been deprived of a birthright. Employers and employees contributed to a fund, and we paid 2 men $27 million to deprive the poor people in this country and the not so poor, who have a vested interest in a national insurance fund that ought to be buoyant, and they scraped away $1 billion and coming here expressing triumph that they did something so noble. So noble. Let us move on. White Oak's engagement letter indicates that the Bajan government agreed to pay the firm just over $21 million for the successful restructuring of its roughly $5 billion of domestic debts. Now, domestic debts. It isn't like the foreign debt where you are in some, where the bargaining power is unequal. It's local. I mean, the government runs the NIS. The government participates in the central bank, who sacrifice as well over $1 billion. So it is no great moment. There's no great moment of triumph to say that you got these 2 local entities to sacrifice anything. What hard work? There's no hard work involved in that. The letter was signed 5 days after, and I beg your pardon, after, this is the article I'm reading, 5 days after Mia Mottley was sworn in as Prime Minister on May 25th. And 2 days before the government announced it was defaulting on its debts. Presumably that was the advice given by these 2 gentlemen. I will read on. Negotiations with external creditors are ongoing. Once complete, the government is set to pay White Oak about $4 million for restructuring approximately $910 million of debt owed to foreign investors. The firm is also receiving an $85,000 monthly retainer, US dollars 85,000. Which of you in here makes $85,000 a month? Not a man, nor a woman. Oinatha said he wanted to do it for free. We paid 2 men $85,000 per month to do this easy work. Let us move on. It is likely to take at least another 12 months to finalize the deal, according to another person involved in the negotiations. The additional $2 million in monthly fees brings the total payout from Barbados to roughly $27 million. And I quote, "It is a disproportionate fee for a small country," said one financial advisor. I'm going to repeat it because the Honorable Attorney General was speaking while I was reading that, and I want him to hear it. And I quote, "It is a disproportionate fee for a small country," said one financial advisor. He went on, "Barbados is not Greece, which had a massive debt stock, multiple debt instruments, and huge political tensions. That was difficult. That was hard work. That was indelicate. That was fraught with danger. Not this transaction that we had here. Not a 2-hour meeting in an air-conditioned office with plush sofas. He went on, the financial advisor, double-digit fees are for very large transactions that are super complicated with a large number of instruments and a large number of different creditors. So here's White Oak now, feebly, at the request of Mrs. Smith, finding something to say in their defense. No doubt they whispered. White Oak's partners said the fee was justified because, and I quote, placing this debt on a sustainable footing has required an unusually complex operation. How impressive. Its rates are, and we quote again, among the lowest charged in any Caribbean restructuring, again in relative terms. And the article continues, Barbados' debts came to roughly 160% of gross domestic product at the beginning of the restructuring in June last year, among the highest in the world. Mr. E and Mr. Eng, don't want to call their names, point out that their business in the country goes beyond the public restructuring and that they're not charging a fee for additional work. Oh dear, let us all applaud. $27 million after easy work, and you say you're not charging for additional work. I'm waiting for laughter from the Attorney General because this is a joke, and he loves to laugh. The pair say they're advising Barbados on several commercial contracts, as well as the restructuring of a number of state-owned enterprises. You know, those state-owned enterprises aren't restructured yet, Your Honor. And this is 2019. 5 years later, Your Honor. Sorry for shouting in your direction.
You should be.
I am.
You ought to be.
That is sincere. I can turn the other way because I got something else to shout about very shortly. You're obsessed, you know. You are obsessed, my friend. But you see this? I'm not departing from it, you know. Not departing. The pair, stay focused. Thank you, Honorable Member for St. Michael North. Stay the course. He's with me for some reason. A good fella, you know. Good fella. The pair say they are advising Barbados on several commercial contracts as well as the restructuring of a number of state-owned enterprises and the country's regional airline, of which the government is the largest shareholder. We're going to come to Liat soon. Liat has not only been a tragedy, Liat has been a catastrophe. Liat should still be flying across this region. The Caribbean man's bus was halted in flight. Is there uniformity in the skies, or is there chaos in the skies? But that is another discussion for another time. But we lament the loss of Liat, and I know that Owen Seymour Arthur went to his grave lamenting the loss of Liat as the former and last chairman of the Barbados operation of Liat. Let us go back to Ms. Smith. However, a few Caribbean debt restructurings have paid out fees in the tens of millions to financial advisors in recent years. These fellas were lucky. Citigroup earned roughly $3 million restructuring Jamaica's $9 billion of defaulted debts in 2013. Those who have ears to hear, let them hear. Citigroup earned roughly $3 million restructuring Jamaica's $9 billion of defaulted debts in 2013. And here was this rich little city on the hill paying $27 million US. There's an African poet who wrote a poem, "Where are the men seized in this wind of madness? Where are the men seized in this wind of madness?" And in Belize, advisors were paid single-digit millions for the restructuring of more than $525 million of debt in 2017. Paid single-digit. According to people familiar with both deals. You know, as I've said, an editor writes deliberately, and this editor keeps referring to these things as deals. And when you say deal, in preference to saying transaction, you know what you're saying. You know what you wish to convey. The English language is beautiful, and it is subtle. And you can say things without saying them openly. But she calls them deals. And we will take her at her word that they were deals. Mr. E and Mr. Eng stress that they have experience of complex work in Pakistan and Iceland and unequal credentials in the Caribbean, having advised on restructurings in Belize, Grenada, and St. Kitts and Nevis, among others. Who will argue with them? But they argue that the $1 billion in savings claimed by the Beijing government as a result of the firm's advice should rise to no more than $2 billion over the next 4 years. Let me not prolong the agony for the Barbadian public. You're out 27 million, it's gone. Where it is, we don't know. We don't know. We can't get it back. It's gone. Bills for interest and professional advice are piling up at a time when the Beijing government has had to call on the IMF for a 290 million bailout. The fees to White Oak represent nearly 1/10 of this lifeline. Do we understand, Mr. Speaker, what Ms. Colby-Smith was saying? That we paid 1/10 of a debt due in legal fees. It's not legal, they're not lawyers, in fees. I'm reading the article, Honorable Prime Minister. No, I'm reading the article. I can read. I may not be able to count, but I can read. You better at maths than I am, I better at English than you are. So let us compete. The fees to White Oak represent nearly 1/10 of this lifeline. Nearly 1/10, the article says. No, it was 290. Good lady. Yes. And I'm going to quote, Your Honor, by any metric or rationale, the fee is outsized and unwarranted. The fee is outsized and unwarranted. Do not let them stop you from hearing me, Your Honor. It quotes here, by any metric or rationale, the fee is outsized and unwarranted. Need we say more? The article says more, and therefore we shall read it. Said Mr. Newman of Invesco, and he quotes again, but if someone were to say, hey, I'll pay you 6 times what you normally get paid, would you say no? So here was Mr. Newman, very cynical about this transaction, saying, but well, if somebody, if you go on to buy a hat and they store off your whole suit for the same money, you would refuse it? So we had a very generous government. And 2 gurus that were making loads of money in this one transaction. Lucky Maine. Lucky Maine. Unlucky country. And we are citizens of this unlucky country. Let us press on. The deal is done. The money is wherever it is. And I congratulate its beneficiaries. They are rich, and we are poor. They are happy, and we are unhappy. They are in the midst of bounty, we are suffering. Let us take our suffering like strong people. We have suffered for many years, and we will suffer until the people of this country tell this government that we are willing to suffer no more. I ask the people of this country to come to their own judgment while reading the Financial Times as an authoritative document, as an authoritative article, that this government squandered $27 million needlessly. And I say further that all reputable economists in this country now are cautioning government against its appetite for borrowing. My sympathy always resides with the honorable member for Christchurch East Central. I believe he is an economist. And I can be persuaded to believe that he's a good economist. And I want one of his constituents to hold him late one night and to ask him privately to satisfy him that it is a private conversation, unrecorded, and that it will be unreported, and to ask the goodly gentleman, Mr. Speaker, how he feels about the state of Barbados' debt to these countries, how he feels about the repeated borrowing. He may not be an advisor, but I believe he will lay claim to being a good economist. I believe he will lay claim to being a good and honorable man, and so are we, all honorable men and women. But his time will come. And when I say that, I am not speaking of ill omens. I'm saying that your time will come, his time will come to speak. And who knows what he will do with me. Your Honor, in this presentation, I want to turn to energy. Our esteemed spokesperson yesterday on energy today, I think, spoke at a breakfast and was making the point that energy is central to this economy, or in this economy. I will say publicly that I feel particularly proud in having taken the decision to ask Barbados' leading voice on utility regulation to sit in the Senate, even before she ascended to that place. She suffered in here what Marcia Week suffered last night. But there's a word called redemption. And your people in the other place are going to have to deal with her in the other place. Enough said. I am proud of the work that she has done. In 2018, this government announced a move to 100% renewable energy by 2030. I asked this government, where are we with that? We're 6 years away from 2030. This government needs to recognize that energy and energy costs are at the heart of high prices. So when we talk about inflation, the question of the cost of energy, electricity, cannot escape us. What is this government doing about it? I ask these questions of this government in this budget debate, which we all must take seriously. What is the level of cooperation between government and Light and Power? Has Light and Power agreed to that target of 2030? Was the government caught unawares in 2022 when it was announced that the grid had reached capacity? Did the government not know this? And by reaching the capacity, I mean the capacity for solar. because presumably it took the government by surprise. There were several consumers in this country who were about to install photovoltaic systems.